Hullcity. That's all we need.
Hello and welcome to a brand new season of The Tigers Down Under. I'm your host, Alex, and with me I have Dan. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, look, I'm pretty good. It's been a very eventful, I'll call it, off season and transfer window so far. So I'm pretty excited to see how it all plays out over the coming season.
Yeah, I'm sort of amazed to think we're like, well, in some ways I'm amazed that we're already back around to pretty much like a week, 10 days out from the season starting. But then at the same time, I'm like, it does feel like a long time since we had that game against Nottingham Forest end of last season. So it's certainly good to be getting back into the real thing pretty soon. Hopefully everyone in England is keeping nice and cool. It's pretty much the opposite of a sweltering day over here, which is why I've got the jumper on my screen. But yeah, hopefully everyone's keeping cool over in England. Well, look, let's kick things off. We'll start by talking about the transfer departures, just to sort of farewell our outgoing players before we look at some of those players that have come in, as you alluded to, because we have seen a bit of turnover in the squad already in this off-season. I mean, there's still 6 weeks of the transfer window to go as well, so there's still plenty more that could happen. But I guess the first ones were the players that were released from the club in Tom Eaves and Richie Smallwood were probably the main two to touch on in that list when we released our retained list of players at the end of last season. Eaves has sort of since signed for Rotherham. So we'll come up against him in the championship as well. And Smallwood signed for Bradford City, who funnily enough will come up against in the League Cup in the coming weeks as well. But what's your take on those two players departing? Is there any sort of sense of surprise that we haven't kept them as depth players, or you just think, look, sort of the writing was on the wall for them?
I'm sort of like, on a personal level, probably like torn. I thought they realistically they have been pretty decent servants for the club over their time with us. Smallwood was really good as captain. It was one of those we've talked many times about. He seemed to be the player that we maybe didn't notice so much when he was on the pitch for doing anything outstanding, but we really seemed to notice his absence. So I guess it really, if you say, well, we replaced him with Seri, it's a fairly decent.
It's a sizable upgrade, yeah.
Yeah, right. So there's, and I think he's been a good servant. I don't think we'll really miss him though. But I am sort of sad to see him go. But yeah.
Did you see his comments? Because he sort of said something along the same lines as you. He said, I think it was only today or yesterday, he did an interview where he sort of said, I was a bit surprised there's no contract offer. I only found out just before the list came out. And that basically like we lost every game that he didn't play this season, which I think was only like 4 games. So I don't think that's a huge sample size. But basically the comment that, yeah, we've kind of felt his absence when he wasn't there. But I thought they were interesting comments. I mean, it didn't really hold back.
Yeah, look, it's kind of been a bit. It's been interesting with the few players that have departed. There's been a couple of little sneaky swipes at the new management in regards to contracts and things. So I hadn't seen those comments, but that's interesting.
I think for him particularly, it's fair enough because was it Shotter who came out after a game and said, "Oh yeah, we're talking to him about a new contract," which sounds like it just wasn't true.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a few things that Shotter has said, which would be interesting to see whether they're true. Because I remember, talking about Eaves, he's apparently said that he wanted to keep Eaves, but Dan Kessler overruled him and said, "Nah, we're getting rid of him. We're going to, do better or whatever." But I thought, he would have been a perfect backup for, particularly when now you've got like Oscar Estepinian, that like similar sort of, big, strong player. If the game plan was working and you just wanted fresh legs but keep the same target man, then he would have been perfect to come off the bench. And I think he probably would have done a good job because at the game, we're sort of the same problem we've had a few times in the last 12 or 18 months, being pretty light up in terms of the striker centre forward options. So I think Tom Eaves is probably one that surprised me. I thought he would have at least, even if it was just the 12-month extension or something.
Yeah.
I probably thought he would have. I mean, but then interestingly, he's gone on. He reckons he set himself
20 goals,
20 goal
Yeah.
for the season target or something, and did he even get that many with us?
No, so what was it? 14 in the league and 18 all up. So yeah, it's an ambitious target. Look, I guess I feel like he said something similar when he joined us. I feel like he said something like, you've got to get on a run and start scoring goals, and that's what a striker's paid to do. And he did have a good scoring record at Gillingham. So if he's in a side that's more set up to feed him the ball in ways that get him to score goals, maybe he can find that scoring touch again.
Yeah, look, I mean, hopefully it didn't really. He never really seemed to set us alight. There was a couple of brief patches where he looked like he was going to get on a bit of a run, but it just never sort of really took off. And every now and then he had a sensational game. The cup against Everton, you just go like, how's this the same player?
Yeah.
It's
he loves a big game, yeah.
Yeah,
which means he's going to be completely up for it when he plays against us, and he's going to do very well.
Probably. I mean, it'll probably continue the long trend of ex-players scoring against us.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But probably the other. Well, I guess the more interesting player to depart. Well, a couple of them, but first of all, George Honeyman, who I think if you sort of when the owners came in January, I was sort of convinced at that point that okay, these sorts of players, these high caliber players, I guess in the sense that they're highly rated within the club. So your Alfie Jones, your Doherty, your Honeyman, your Greaves, all those sorts of guys who are sort of that top echelon of players at the club will be looked after. They'll get their deals re-signed. Will kind of protect the value of those players. And Honeyman, I thought, was sort of a Monty for getting a contract extension. And it sounds like we offered him 2 contracts, which he turned down both of them. And he also had a few interesting comments where he sort of said, it's all right saying they want to keep you, but it's about offering you stuff, and there wasn't anything stupid. So as in, I sort of took from that, and it could be me reading into it, that you look at players like Seri coming in, Tufan coming in, other guys like that, and the wages they're on. And I don't think Honeyman probably wouldn't have thought that he's going to get the same sort of wage, but it's probably just the gulf in offers between what he was being offered and what they're reportedly getting. And you can sort of understand him making that move to Millwall.
Yeah, I think a combination of, probably not being able to then upgrade the value of his contract as much, and probably also what would have been a very significant reduction in playing time, in all likelihood. If these are the men that Shotta has and the club brought in because they want, well, then at least for a little while, unless they don't pick up any form at all, you would imagine that, Tufan will be starting the season and in the starting 11 for those first, couple of months, just so that would have been a pretty big reduction from, our Energizer Bunny, 90 minutes week in, week out, Honeyman that we knew. But I guess he's probably one again that I sort of agree with you. He's probably the most disappointing loss really of those, contextually, because I thought there's with Lewis Potter, I think potentially timing wise in his career maybe not right, but I think also that amount of money and that opportunity, it's hard to
that's right,
say no to. But to go to basically to go to a club that's not arguably, I mean, sure, they finished higher than us last year in Millwall, but
I think they'd have the same targets this season as well.
Yeah,
no better.
Arguably not in any better position. It's sort of just like a sideways move. Really.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess he'll get the game time that he wants. I can't imagine that even then, to say that the wages that they will offer will be significantly better than what we were is I mean, hard. I guess hard to say, but championship wages are championship wages, not like Millwall's are. Yeah,
I think I saw that I saw they were offering about 15,000 a week. I feel like it's probably more than
that. So it's a lot more than probably what we would have offered. So,
yeah. So maybe it's because of that. Yeah, so that's probably a bit of a disappointing one. You sort of alluded to him there. Lewis Potter's probably the most recent one, and in some ways the most predictable. In other ways, I mean, we sort of held out hopes that we'd hold on to him at least for the summer, and sort of like Bowen, we held on to him for the summer and then sold him in January. You can't really fault him making the move. I think the only thing I'd say is it'll be interesting to see the role he plays in Brentford's squad this season. I think they've given him the number 9 shirt, so I'm sort of surprised by that. I mean, it shows that he's
already scored for him, so
yeah,
he's off to a flyer.
Yeah, that's right. So look, all power to him. I don't hold a grudge with him at all for wanting to go to prove himself. He's given us a significant boost to our transfer budget as well with that £16 million sale. I think it'll be interesting, and we'll sort of talk about it later when we talk predictions, but it'll be interesting to see how we replace his role in the side, because I think there was, he only scored, 12 goals last season in the 46 games, but that was, easily our top goal scorer for the season. He bailed us out in games a number of times. He sort of had that ability to just have that flash of brilliance and score a goal. I think obviously we're essentially replacing him with Cynic. We've also got Ali in on the other side. It'll be interesting to see if they can sort of pick up that weight of goal scoring that he'll have left in the side.
Yeah, I think in terms of that, yeah, it's a big hole, but sort of as we both said, like it is certainly hard to make too many complaints about his departure. I guess I think the thing is, like, we basically spent the 16 million before it had even gone, which has allowed, I think, which is interesting for the club, but they made contact with the EFL just to check on where they sit in terms of financial regulations and stuff. With money coming in and the purchases they've made, and I guess like where, like,
because I would have thought we'd be pretty much break even.
Yeah, which is I would think the same, but I guess like maybe they just want to clarify so they don't get themselves into trouble. Which is not silly, but just like clarify, like, if we bring in 16, can we spend 16 or like whatever it is? But
and it could also be it could be the EFL after Derby just being a bit twitchy and seeing new owners spending a lot of money, just wanting to make sure everything's going fine, and it could just be a routine thing like that. And
I assume that probably also sort of indicates that there's all the rumors going that there's still more incomings to come. So I assume it's maybe going like, well, we have spent this much and we do want to spend more. Are we going to like get in trouble if we keep spending and prove, I guess, that they've got the finance and everything, just to like have that conversation at least. But it's been an interesting, even just without even talking about those that have come in, it's been a crazy departures, and I dare say there'll be a few more that will probably go. There's some of those
that's right.
very fringe players that
we haven't talked about. I think Moncur left to go to where was it? It was a League Two club that I've already forgotten the name of. Was it Cambridge? I can't remember who it was. And I think Cannon will probably go as well, and a few others like Wilkes obviously still being linked to Chef Wednesday as well. Potentially Tyler Smith going out on loan. I'm actually pretty happy to keep him in the squad, to be honest. I think talking about Eves before being quite similar to Estepinian, I think in a similar sort of way, well, opposite sort of way, Smith is quite different. So it's actually like a different option that we can throw up front if we need it as well. So just on Lewis Potter, I mean, it's a sad one in a way, because you look at guys like him and Greaves as sort of Hull-born players and wanting them to sort of lift and rise with the side. And I think like it's hard to put myself in Lewis Potter's shoes, but you think like new owners, a whole bunch of investment. Surely you want to stay with the club, see if you can push them into the Premier League and kind of become like a hero of the club. And then you've got a Premier League move with your own homegrown club, really. But it's a tough one, I guess. Yeah,
I get that. But I guess it's pretty risky, like in the footballing career. You never know what can happen. And I think he's realistically made the right choice in just taking the opportunity that was presented, because the worst thing could be to like to not take that, to take the risk of staying with City, try and take us up and be the hero and us not go up, or him get like ACL injuries or something crazy, or like have a Ryan Mason-esque situation where, out of nowhere your career's ended. So I think if you factor in all the it's just a game of possibilities, really. Like what if and what could go wrong. But I think you sort of do have to look at some of those situations and go, well, if this happens, not only am I out of a career, but I'm also not I've lost out on a big payday, money that could keep me fed for years, keep the family happy for years. So I think there's so many factors that go into it, but overall he's hopefully done the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
For him, as long as he's happy with his decision, then it doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, we'll move on to the more exciting aspect of the squad turnover in the summer, which has been the incoming players, starting with a couple of familiar faces who we did have on loan last season in Baxter and Ali returning on, semi-permanent deal for Baxter with that option to buy, basically suggesting that he'll be our player come the following summer. And then, of course, Ali signing on a pretty big four-year deal with an option for a further year. We signed Cartwright to an extension. We'll talk about that later on as well, as a 4+1 as well. But I can't think of too many essentially 5-year deals that we've handed out in recent years. So that's a very big sign of confidence in Ali, and I think pretty well founded given the form he showed in the second half of last season and is already showing in a couple of the preseason games.
Yeah, it's good to see Baxter come back for starters. I think those between Baxter and Ingram, that means they both showed last year that they're two top quality goalkeepers, and I think they seem to work well as a partnership, really pushing each other to the limit. I think they both know the quality that the other possesses, so they know they have to stay on their toes and push themselves as best they can. Sort of, if one's out, I think you still have a really strong goalkeeper who can step in. And it's not always been the case where you've got sometimes we've had a really strong first, but the backup's been pretty but I think we've got a good thing going there.
Yeah, and Cartwright going out on loan to Peterborough as well gives him a solid season of first team experience in League One and gives us a third option really looking forward.
Yeah, I think actually I fully forgot that was a really good. I think that was a really good move. That was done really nice and early, which is good. Allowed him to go out and do preseason and everything with them. A familiar manager. He's obviously worked with Grant before, so that makes things a little bit easier for some of those first senior loans out. So I think it'd be good to see how that goes, and hopefully he gets can force his way into contention there and get some game time this season.
Yeah, no doubt. And then Ali coming in as well, permanent deal. I think they were saying it's like a £3 million fee. I think with these ones like Ali, Tufan as well. I don't know about Cynic. I think with a lot of those they're quite cheap up front, but then I think the selling club will have like a 50% sell-on fee, which I don't mind too much because I think it basically means that there's very minimal risk for us, because if we sell the player at a loss, then we don't have to give them any fee. If we sell them at a massive profit, then we get a share of that profit as well anyway. And we've it's a smaller risk for us because we've outlaid much less upfront.
Yeah, look, Ali's signed the most drawn out saga, I think, in a while. Like we all knew it was coming, and they just
there was a few of those, wasn't there?
Do announcements. It was real weird.
Yeah.
But no, really glad to have him back. I think once he got up to speed last season, and he actually managed to do that really quickly, I think, for a player for their first time in England and in the Championship. So I'm really excited to see him have a full season under his belt and see how many goals he can score and how much trouble he can cause. Because as you alluded to, he's already he's been pretty good in the preseason games so far.
Yeah, no, definitely. We also signed Figueiredo on a free signing from Nottingham Forest, who of course lined up against us in that final game of the season. 2-year deal with an option for a further year as well. We've been saying for 12 months now, 18 months, that we just needed an experienced centre back to add to the squad because we had such a young central defending lineup, really. And I know we were sort of fixated. Well, I was sort of fixated on Curtis Davies potentially returning to the club, but plenty of great options out there, as this signing has shown. looks like he's slotted in really seamlessly. Looked really good in that game against Fenerbahce. I saw that, that clip of him getting sort of smashed into the hoardings, and he just sort of stands up without flinching. And you're like, yeah, that's the sort of centre back that you really want at the centre of your defence. So it looks a really great pickup as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you said, it's been a couple of years of saying, what do we want out of a transfer? Oh, we just want like a good, solid, experienced centre back to help guide, these other young players we've got. So we finally made it happen. And I mean, he looks good so far, and obviously, played his role in a team that performed very well last season. So looking forward again to see how he goes through the season, and how I think his experience and knowledge will help guys like Greaves and McLaughlin and Jones really develop and hone their craft in the centre of defence.
Yeah, definitely. I think along with Seri, it's interesting to see us kind of getting in a couple of promotion winners to have around that squad, and to if nothing else, obviously play a big role in the side themselves, but also just to give, as you say, that guidance and experience to these younger players, and how to manage games, how to sort of last through the season, focus through the season. As people's attention or energy levels or whatever might drop, and keep them focused and keep them pushing, I think will be quite invaluable experience. Also signed Ozan Tufan, who I think, I was trying to look it up because I was like, I'm sure that I sort of half jokingly mentioned him at some point when I was looking at like Turkish players in the Premier League back in January, when I was like, oh, well, there's Soyuncu at Leicester. And then I was like, oh, there's this Tufan guy at Watford. I'd never really heard of him. And look, we've got him in 3-year deal with an additional year as a club option. 65 appearances for the Turkish national team. Granted, the most recent appearance was a bit over a year ago, but it's still, no slouch to get that many appearances for a reasonable European national side. Didn't have the greatest of spells with Watford. I think a few concerns around his fitness, things like that. Hard to know how much to read into that in terms of his character, just because that Watford side was such a mess at that point. But obviously kind of, still struggling for a bit of fitness and sharpness this pre-season, but potentially a pretty good pickup.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like the jury's still out a little bit. Obviously possesses talent and like some level of mind for the game, but that fitness is certainly what's holding him back at the moment. This morning in the Leicester game, he had some really nice touches and did some good stuff. Free kick that was pretty good, bent it up and over the wall and down, but just pulled it wide. But then you also saw like moments where he just couldn't keep up with the pace of the game, and that's probably the biggest concern in a long championship season again. That whether he can get up to fitness and maintain that across the 46 games.
Yeah, and Tufan, I mean, we haven't not really talked about Traore, who was injured about 5 minutes into his first training session. But between Traore and Tufan, it's probably what adds to my frustration about Honeyman, because I just feel like having someone like Honeyman on the bench or as a rotation option for these guys to sort of ease them into the season, or to give them a rest through the season if their fitness isn't up to it, would be so perfect. So, I mean, obviously we've still got Greg Doherty. We've got others who can also fill in that role. Slater as well, who I'm sort of backing to have quite a big season as well. But yeah, look, it'll be interesting to see how Tufan settles into the side. Well, probably the next are probably the two most exciting, at least in my opinion, signings that we've made, starting with Jean-Michel Seri signing on a free transfer from Fulham. It was one of those that was sort of on again, then off again, then on again signings, where we were first sort of linked, and I was like, oh, here we go. It's in that sort of realm of the Yilmaz and the other sort of wild names we were getting linked to in January, that, oh, look, it's a nice sort of pipe dream, but it's never going to actually happen. Then it seemed like it was quite likely to happen, and then it was very likely not to happen, and then it was very likely to happen again, and he actually signed. So what was your sort of take on it, and how excited or how interested are you in seeing him play for us?
Look, it was, as you sort of said, like a bit of a wild ride. He was at first mentioned, and you go, well, he just got, it was sort of similar to but yeah, like just say we, just got promoted. What he's obviously going to command a pretty high wages. Do we really going to be able to afford that? Like we don't really have a great negotiating position for someone of his caliber, apart from, I guess, how convincing Ajun really is. But then as you said, then he was at the training ground and hanging around and looking at stuff, and kids, the wife and the kids are checking out the local schools, and well, maybe this is actually. Then all of a sudden they're off to Italy because they don't like, Hull's not good enough. They got to go bougie old Italy, check out the good schools over there or something. I don't know. But then, and you went, I can't remember if it was Juventus or someone, probably not Juventus, but whoever.
Yeah, I don't actually think the club was named. I think they just said, he's going to sign for a club in Italy. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, but and then I think Juventus, because we just had that meeting with them.
Yeah,
that's what
right. Yeah,
They popped in my head. Again, as soon as it was sort of like, Italy, you're like, well, I guess that's the end of that. And then all of a sudden he was back and signed and announced, and you go, what the? But from what obviously from seeing him play last season, and then so far in the preseason, one that really gets me excited. Sure, a couple of rusty errors have been made over the couple of preseason games, but I think really gives me mobile Huddleston vibes.
Yeah.
He's very good on the ball, very smart passes, but actually sort of has the legs to really get around and make a nuisance of himself. So I think he's really going to be one of the key players. He's going to be the conductor in the middle of the park, really pulling the strings and keeping the ball moving and keeping the play moving. So if he can build up a bit of relationship with the players around him and gel into that squad, and then I think we've made a really smart signing, and we could do some damage this season.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, here in Australia in the A-League, we have marquee players that signed for the A-League sides, and I feel like he is our marquee player because I feel like before he signed for us, whether it was players that we were approaching or rival fans or pundits or whoever, probably looked at us and thought, oh, look, that's cute. They're trying to make a sort of a push for promotion. They're buying, they're getting a free centre-back from Forest. They're getting a couple of players back that they had last season. Oh, that's nice. Good on them. And then we signed Jean-Michel Seri, and you think pretty much any side in the literally any side in the championship, if he walked up to their door and said, "Can I play for your club this season?" they would be begging him to play for them. Like, he is a quality player that walks into any side in this division. So to sign for us, it's a real statement of intent, and I think it shows players that are considering joining us that we actually mean business and that we're actually the real deal, and we're not just sort of signing a few players from the other side of Europe that no one's really paid much attention to. We're actually signing good quality players that will take us up this division. And so, yeah, I think he's that player. Like, you listen to podcasts and stuff, they just go, wow, it's actually a remarkable signing. So, yeah, very excited to see what he can do for us this season.
Yeah, I think his signing has slashed our odds for playoffs and promotion and things as well, which is just crazy.
No doubt. The other one that I'm really excited for is Oscar Estepinian up front for us. Signed on a free transfer from Vitória de Guimarães in Portugal. Scored 15 goals in 28 appearances for them last season, which was only 11 goals less than Darwin Núñez. And I say only, I mean, yes, it's 11 goals less, but Núñez has just gone to Liverpool for close to £100 million. So to be, I think he was 5th or 6th top scorer in that division. So, the equivalent of signing Jamie Vardy or something from Leicester on a free transfer. I mean, not that the Portuguese league's as good as the Premier League, but sort of that standing of Golden Boot. 3-year deal with an option for another year. He's 25 years old, so a lot of potential still in him. Could really be that prolific striker that we've been sort of looking for quite some time. And I think I saw the comparison. I mean, he's a Colombian striker. The last striker we had from South America was Abel Hernandez, who didn't do too badly in the championship.
Yeah, look, I think Oscar is definitely one to be excited about. I think the couple of showings he's now had in preseason, particularly this morning, he was really, really impressive for a big lad, lots of mobility, works really hard up there. and makes smart choice, smart decisions. Knows when to press, when to sit back and hold his position, and when to get involved. But interesting comment from this morning's game was that unlike some of our previous centre forwards, Magennis, Eves, those kind of guys who, when things are getting tough, have dropped in to try and help out the midfield or whatever. Oscar and Ali very specifically, it looks like this morning, have been told, you're not dropping back. You need to stay up top, be an outlet, be there to actually move forward, which is I think it's a good change, because it means that, just that we actually have an outlet when we win that ball back in the middle, and you just have to trust that Seri, Figueiredo, Greaves, whoever is going to be able to win that ball back and play it out. And if you've got no one up there, then what can you do? And if you've got both of them up there, then you've got Oscar and a nice big target man to win it, hold it up, flick it on, play it through, something for Ali, who then has all the pace and trickery to run at defenses or run past defenses. So interesting tweak, I think, in tactic and style there, but I think it's good, and I think Oscar shows lots of smarts around the box, and I think he'll be really dangerous. Won't be surprised if he hits double figures this season.
Yeah, I saw there was I didn't actually read the Twitter thread, but I saw there was a tweet from someone who was assessing like top 10 transfers or top 20 transfers across Europe so far this window, and Estepinian joining us was one of the ones that he said this is one of the best signings that he's seen, because like he just rates Estepinian so highly and thinks it's such an interesting move. So yeah, really excited to see what he can do. I'll touch on a bit. We'll just talk about Cynic first, but then I do want to talk about the potential formation I'm going to play, because I do think there's a lot of options now with some of these players we've signed. But we did announce overnight Dogukan Cynic joining on another 3-year and 1-year option for supposedly around £4 million from Antalya Sport, which I feel like might have been the club that Traore came from as well. I can't quite remember, but he's only 23, so a little bit older than Ali, but a bit younger than some of the other players that we've signed. Had 3 goals in 29 for the season for them from the wing. He's been capped by Turkey in the last couple of months as well. So in a way, I guess you could say he's almost like the Turkish Keenless Potter. I guess we've sort of tried to say, let's do a like for like there, get an exciting young winger in. Yeah, jury's out a little bit for me on this one. I haven't seen a whole lot, and granted, it's just YouTube highlights are just YouTube highlights. But when your YouTube highlights are scoring a goal and then flipping the video and having the same goal play as if it's from the other wing, makes me kind of question. You're sort of scraping the bottom of the barrel to come up with a few highlights for this guy. But look, benefit of the doubt, we'll see what he can do in a City shirt, and hopefully he can hit the ground running.
Look, to be fair, one of the highlights packages that I watched of Ali, I was very unimpressed with. That I thought he looked really slow and like sluggish and not that impressive. But so perhaps it'll be one of those occasions where all his best goals just weren't captured on camera. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I think hopefully, right, the £4 million price tag reflects somewhat his ability, and we're at least signing players who are in or around like national teams and not Joe Blogs from League Two, free transfer from League Two this time around. So I think it sort of carries on that not as big a statement of intent as Seri, but that same idea that we're going to spend money and we're going to bring players of quality in. So if he falls in line with what we've seen from the other players that have been brought in, then I'm probably not really too worried.
Yeah, no, fair enough on that one. So Cynic's a winger. Ali can play on the wing. We're also, Benjamin Tete's sort of in that weird phase that we seem to have with a lot of our signings, where he's been pictured in City gear but hasn't been announced yet. Who can also play up front, I believe. I'm really interested to sort of think about, so that we've sort of covered the incomings now, but really interested to think about what sort of lineup or formation we're looking at for next season, because I think traditionally, like way back when we were playing the 4-3-3 under the Allams and under Grant McCann. We moved to a 3 at the back last season with a lot of success, which was sort of I'd say like a 3-4-3 sort of formation, which Shotta ended up sort of continuing with, but then sort of a bit of talk that his favored formation's 4-3-3 as well. But I look at the fact that we've got Estepinian, we've got Tete, we've got Ali who can play up forward as well. And I look at the lineup this morning where it was basically a 3-5-2. And when we were initially linked with Tete and Estepinian a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, I wonder if we're almost, and probably influenced a little bit by our discussion about Long and Jelavic a couple of weeks ago in our flashback episode, but I thought, I wonder if there is a sort of a scope to move back to a 3-5-2 and actually play those two strikers up front. And it was interesting to see this morning that was essentially what we tried to play.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones where they're still calling it a 3-4-3, but Tufan, I think, is playing like a false 9 or whatever. So he's playing in behind then Ali and Oscar this morning. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, it really was just a 3-5-2, which I don't have a problem with. It seemed to. It's just, I think we were talking about it off air, but that lots of stuff is going really well in the game so far in preseason. I think defensively across all the games, we actually have been fairly solid. We got caught out a little bit this morning against, a Premier League side that only just missed out on European football, for another season, and we're able to bring on, Jamie Vardy,
James Maddison, and those sorts of guys.
Yeah, a little bit higher quality than some of the other games that we've played. But I think it's just that final third transition, moving from our midfield to our forwards, and getting down into final third and creating genuine opportunities is probably still our biggest weakness. But I think also I sort of mentioned to you about how it seemed like this morning's game was very much on developing some routines for future stuff. It wasn't treated as if like because the result doesn't matter, so it's understandable, but not a game that needed to be won, and so you do what you need to do to win. It was, I think I said someone had pointed out that Ingram barely sent the ball along at all throughout the game. Every time he had it in his hands, he was rolling it out to the defenders to play it out from the back. So there was a lot of emphasis on that part of the game and of quick movements and quick passing, and a couple of really good passages of play once we got into their third. I think Fleming late in the game had a good 1-2 sequence where I think he then got brought down right on the edge of the box of Leicester's box. So it is, I think, starting to happen. The football that we want to play is coming, but also it's a bit of a process when we've brought in so many new players. So I think it'll be that it looks like the 3-4-3 is sort of what we're probably going to play, but I can't. I mean, yeah, I don't think we'll go back to a 4 at the back. I think we just actually seem to be way more comfortable when we have, for whatever reason, just those 3 when we play 3 at the back. So I think it'll stay, as probably as a 3-4-3 moving forward. And I think, as I touched on, I think the football is getting there, and they've obviously worked a lot at some of the quick passing and stuff. And then again, it's having someone like Jean-Marc Seri who can really help facilitate that style of football.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting playing that, if we are playing that 3-4-3, that you're essentially then saying to one of Cynic, Oscar, Tete, Ali, I guess one of them, that they'll be on the bench, which is good. Like we were just talking before about the fact that we need that depth and we need those better options off the bench. And you look at our bench this morning, it was quite thin. So having options off the bench would be really exciting and promising. I think, as you touched on there, I mean, sort of covering all of those preseason games as a whole, it's not really a need to go through them one by one. But I think we were sort of saying before the podcast, it's a really tough. In a way, it's really good. We've played really high quality teams, probably Malaga aside, and it's hard to know are we struggling because we're playing good sides, or are we struggling because we're not very good? So it'll be interesting playing Cambridge and Peterborough this weekend, who we should be playing quite well against. And I'd sort of hope that, granted that we're going to be splitting the side across the two games, I'd be sort of hoping that, yes, for the Leicester game, it was all about getting the processes right. But I'd almost be saying for those two games that treat these games as if there's 3 points on the line and let's go for it and see what we're like in match conditions, so that if there are any kinks in the system, we can iron them out. I think, do we have the League Cup game before the first game of the season? I feel like it falls before it.
I am unsure.
I'll look that up. But whether we have that chance before the season starts or if it's just after it, I'm just looking up now. No, it's not till 2 games into the season. So basically, these are our sort of dress rehearsals for the Bristol City game. But just needing that creative output in midfield. So it's been a bit of a struggle over pre-season. Like, we scored those 2 goals against Malaga from the corners, and we got the third, granted, from a great sort of shot from Coyle. But it's going to be interesting to see how we shape up for the start of the season. What formation we take, and even who makes the starting 11. I mean, we haven't talked about new contracts for Fleming and Ingram. And yet Elder, apart from this morning, Elder's been almost the preferred option at left back, or left wing back. So that's going to be an interesting battle as well, I think, between Elder and Fleming.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that plays out, because I thought Elder was pretty good in the other games that I've seen him play, and then it sort of looked like maybe he was ahead in the race, and then Fleming started this morning when Elder came on. He came on into centre mid, so I want. Sorry, my thing just started buffering.
Sorry, you just broke up there. But he came on in centre midfield. So whether he's going to become that more flexible option off the bench, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that was sort of what I was trying to get to, was whether that was because of personnel issues, or whether that's, maybe he's shown something in training that means that the little bit of versatility there allows him to step into a couple of different roles. But I can't see how he'd really be a preferred option in the midfield. But it might have also just been that he is seen as someone who's more likely to be involved in first team and needs more minutes than Vaughan Koval or someone like that, who, while talented, is probably going to spend obviously more time in the under-20s than in the first team.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, to wrap up this podcast, we'll do our customary predictions. We'll get more predictions from the boys on next week's episode as well, so we can try and get a good spread of predictions from the whole panel. But I'll kick you off with one that we've sort of already touched on, and I probably already know your answer to this one. But what's your prediction for top goal scorer?
See, I know earlier I predicted that Oscar would get double figures, but then I looked at that and I went, I'm actually unsure. I'm sort of torn between Ali and Oscar. And I think I'm actually going to go Ali. I think I'm going to put Ali as top goal scorer.
Rough estimate, sort of 15 goals, you reckon? 12 to 15, maybe.
Something like that. Yes.
Yeah. I'll go Oscar. I'm excited to see him play. I'm hoping. I feel like we've signed a lot of those sorts of big man strikers, and they don't seem to work out. So I'm hoping that we finally cracked it, and we've got a good one in the building. So hopefully he can score quite a few for us. Player that will improve the most over the season. I guess this is a bit of a tricky one. There's so many new players that don't really have a base to improve from. But do you have a stab for this one?
I kind of almost want to twist your interpretation of this a little bit and say Doherty, but based on last season's performances, which were probably below what we expected, and by all accounts below what he expects of himself. So he seems fairly primed for a big season. So And yes, it's going to be a challenge to force his way into that midfield. He's vying essentially with over Slater and Seri really for those two sort of holding midfield spots. But I honestly I feel like he's in for a big season.
I'm going to twist it as well slightly. Then, if you've twisted it, I'm going to go with Tufan, in the sense that he started from such a low fitness base, literally, but also just from maybe like a poor last season with Watford and maybe poor sort of expectations on him as a result. And so I'm going to back him to really come good. I think it's a weird sort of comparison given what I've just said, because I was going to say I feel like he's kind of like Ben Arfa when he came here, and Ben Arfa said, I just need to be somewhere where I'm loved. I just need to have that. And he didn't work out. So I'm not comparing him in that sense, but Tufan feels like that sort of player who's had a really bad experience at his last club. He needs to go somewhere where he's supported and loved and has that encouragement. And I think he'll get that here with Ajun and Kessler and Schotter as well. So I'm going to back him to have a really good season and actually sort of surprise a few people, including myself. Like, I think when he first signed, I was a bit skeptical, but I'm going to back him in on that one. Best summer signing. This can be sort of on any metric. It doesn't have to be based on top goal scorer or anything like that. But who do you think is going to end up being the best summer signing?
I think it's really hard to go past Seri. I just think from what I've seen, he actually just feels he's way above where the other signings are in terms of performance levels already. And he honestly looks like a player who doesn't belong in our squad.
Yeah, no,
but
good
hopefully,
shout.
hopefully, the rest it all gels together, and then he looks, or he looks like a part of the squad, and everyone else looks like they should be a part of his team or something.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, look, I'm probably going to have to agree. I'll go Seri as well. I think sort of talking about Tufan is sort of in for a big season, and Oscar probably going to be Golden Boot winner. Oh, sorry, leading goal scorer for the club. I mean, if he wins the Golden Boot, that'd be fantastic as well. But I think, as you say, I think Seri is such like sort of a head and shoulders above the rest of the squad, and he's playing that role in the side where I think the comparison to Huddleston was a really good one that you made, where he'll kind of control and orchestrate our game. And so there's a lot resting on his shoulders in that sense, but I think he's got that quality to really take us up to that next level. So I think he'll certainly be a great signing for us. Just like we did last season, biggest red flag after a month. What would you be worried to see after a month?
Probably exactly what I think I said last season, and probably what I say almost every season, which is no goals after a month. I honestly, I think like based on preseason and how we performed, even last season, I thought our defense has been really, really good. So I think, and as we touched on before, that transition to attack is probably the weakest part of our play at the moment. So I think no goals, or like, I don't know how many games we have in the first month, but if we've only scored, 1 or 2 goals across, 4 or 5 games, or 6 games, including like cup games or whatever, then I'd be pretty concerned, I think, in that regard.
Yeah, 7 games in the first month because of the World Cup, so we're getting games crammed in absolutely everywhere. I was thinking along the same lines, and then I thought I'm going to flip it from last year and actually say if we start conceding a lot of goals, because our defense was so strong last season, I think if we're conceding a lot of sloppy goals, sort of like that first season under Grant, where we'd take the lead or we'd do pretty well for half a game and then we'd like concede 2 late goals and lose games. I think that'd be a red flag to me, because I think the defense being such a strong part of the side, if we lose that aspect of the side, unless we're winning games 4-3, that sort of thing. I mean, that's what Ajun wants, isn't it? But yeah, I think if we're starting to concede a lot of goals, that'd concern me, because I don't know if I back our forwards to sort of compensate for that. And then the big one to finish off, where do you see us finishing the season?
Realistic me says top half, 7th to 12th or something like that. Hopeful me, optimistic me says top 6.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think I'm sort of the same. I think the way I put it at the end of last season was, if I come out of this season disappointed that we haven't made the playoffs, that'll do me, because if we're in that sort of battle. But yeah, that sort of 5th to 10th sort of half bracket. It's like not the top 6, it's not the top half, but it's like, yeah, like you're saying, like around that sort of area would be great. I think it's a really open season. I think, more than most championship seasons, there's no real standouts for automatics or anything at the moment. So if a couple of these signings really hit the ground running, if, Estepinian has like 5 goals after the first month, and Cynic's, on fire supplying assists, and 2 fans, firing in free kicks, then like, who's to say that we can't kind of get on a roll and do really well? So it's going to be a pretty exciting season, that's for sure. So look, thanks for joining me. It's been a pretty bumper episode. There's been a lot of players to cover that have joined the club. It's been, as you started the episode by saying, it's been a pretty wild summer so far.
Yeah, it has, and I'm sure it's not done yet. So here's to talk about some more signings in the coming episodes.
Absolutely. Here's
once Tete announced.
Yeah, Tete's
probably on in a couple of days before or after the Cambridge and Peterborough games.
Yeah, that's right. He'll probably be, warming up with the side before one of those games, and then the club will announce it afterwards, or that sort of thing. It's I don't know. I don't know why that is. I don't know. Is it work permits, or it's got to be something? But it's very strange. But and you look, maybe we still got to sneak in the Traore announcement as well. I'm wondering if we're just going to do it in the when you have to lodge your squad list at the end of the window. I wonder if we'll just have Traore on there and not even announce it. Because I feel like
Ajun's the media mogul. There must be some reasoning behind this. He's got it all figured out.
I feel like with Traore, because he's out till Christmas, I wonder if we're almost just going to like announce him at the start of January and be like, hey, it's a brand new signing. It's just like, yeah, okay. We'll see how we go. But look, thanks for joining me for this one, Dan. It's been a big one, but a good one. Yeah, absolutely. And look, thank you everyone for tuning in for our first episode of the season. We'll be back next week to preview that Bristol City game, round up any other signings in the meantime, and look ahead to the real thing. But until then,